How do we lead with purpose inside systems that weren't built for us? Welcome back to Confluently, the space where resilience really meets reality. Today, I have the absolute honor of sitting down with someone who truly embodies what it means to lead with grit, grace, and unapologetic brilliance. She is a force of nature in finance world, e-commerce, venture capital, innovation across all of Southeast Asia. She is an investor, a builder, a visionary, a mentor to the next generation of change makers. And through it all, she somehow managed to stay grounded in her mission, which is to create, uplift, disrupt, all without losing her humanity. I'm talking about none other than Shannon Kalayanamitr. Today, we're going to unpack what it takes to scale companies in volatile markets, thrive as a woman in tech and finance, and navigate career pivots that require you to really go ahead and bet on yourself. With that, let's go ahead and dive in. Shannon, thank you so much for being here. It is great to have you on my show.
Hey, baby. How are you, Tiffany?
That's what I'm talking about. We're bringing that vibe today. With that, let's go ahead and rewind back to the beginning. Okay, we're going to throw the old, play mix on. You started really in investment banking at Lehman Brothers in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis. Not really the easiest time to enter that industry. So, what I really want to know is what did that experience really teach you about uncertainty, adaptability, and leading under pressure? Because I am fairly certain there was a lot of pressure.
Wow, I mean, that's long ago. The biggest pressure to me actually was internal. Everybody else graduated from an Ivy League school. I like we had the Columbias, we had the we had the Harvards, we had the Stanfords, and I made the weird decision, even though I went to high school in California, to come back to Thailand and graduate from still the top Thai finance school, Thai university. But yeah, I was really intimidated. So the biggest pressure was internal, having to live up to it. But also, I think the biggest thing during the Asian crisis was, in finance, or you're from finance, right? There's many different types of finances or the career that you could actually get into, and getting into distressed assets and understanding that there was actually a type of finance where you could go and scour the earth and then find these like undervalued assets, whether it be like beautiful, gorgeous, like real estate in Maldives or Bali or Phuket, all the way to all these like foreclosed houses. It was a weird time. It was a weird experience, but fun experience to experience both kind of the closing of these big real estate deals and having dinners at the Four Seasons, yet servicing some of these distressed deals because 56 financial institutions in Thailand closed down and people were just scrambling for cash, right? And so
Yeah.
it was a stark reminder and humility of, I guess, the riches in life, but then also how things can go really wrong. And I think that kind of helped me catapult, like, there are crises in this world, and we need to prep for that.
I can't agree with you more. One of my specialties is really what, for lack of better terms, is taking a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
Company and polishing it up into a diamond. I'm like, in that pile right there
Like that too.
is a
I like
diamond.
that too. Yeah. Restructuring. I mean, that's how I completely get you.
And ultimately, I think that the market crash, we felt it here in the United States as well with our real estate market crash, 2008, 2010. There's a time where, houses were just on the market, beautiful, gorgeous, fantastic properties. Some people say that it was terrible to like swoop them up for, a penny on the dollar, but at the same token, being able to, rebuff that for a new family is absolutely a great thing. And so I think it's framing, right, as how you think about the situations. You said before that, it really took time for you to accept and build on your strengths. What helped you really to get to that point of clarity and self-acceptance in those early years? I think you touched on the imposter syndrome, which I live with yet to this day. How have you done it?
Like there are always days where it comes back. And I had it last year, and I had it 5 years ago. It sneaks up on you here and there, but I guess it's good. It keeps you on your toes. If not, if you don't have imposter, you'd be a narcissist, right? Maybe that's the other way around. I think for me, when I moved back from Thailand, when I was 12, I always felt I was weird. And that kind of weirdness, and I guess you could relate as well, right? So the way I look is not how I act or sound or whatever. So people have a judgment or already perception of what you are. And when you aren't what they expect, you're weird,
Yep.
basically. And so I know in the beginning, it actually stuck with me because when I first moved back, I was in the 6th grade. I got bullied, like I had people that made my best friend break up with me. Like it was really jarring, right? But fast forward, I think the thing was that weirdness has made me be able to be like, fuck it. Can I say that? Can I say that here?
Yes. Yes.
It
On
be
this
like,
podcast, it is not meant for children. We absolutely do.
yeah, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to get your approval anyway. So why don't I just do it anyway? I'm going to be weird anyway, so own it. And so I think that kind of moving forward was like, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. You're going to hate me anyway. It doesn't the outcome doesn't change. Fast forward, it's helped me in even my business, right? Because I think like in Asia, you kind of have to kowtow to elders.
Yep.
And so when I come in and then my weirdness, you could tell that I don't look like a typical Thai and I don't sound like a typical Thai or Asian. When I talk to them and I say something that might be too assertive, they kind of forgive me because they're like, "Oh, she's just not real Thai." So, it's been a weird thing as growing up, but then now it's kind of been my superpower.
I love that.
And coming from another kid that was weird and bullied in
Yeah.
school at a very young age, and realizing, like you said, fuck it, they're going to bully me either way. I might as well, say what I'm going to say, do what I'm going to do. I get that. And, navigating that in corporate spaces is very unique because one, the hierarchy, two, the, structure, three, the culture, and then, a person of color that's a female,
Yeah.
in a male dominated society is also just, taking it to a whole nother level. So I think that the shock value actually works in our favor because it stops them from having their predisposed thoughts.
That's true. So true. Shock value.
I think we
Yeah.
should keep at it. I think we should definitely keep at it. I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
should we should encourage this in more people like ourselves.
You should see the faces when I'm like talking to my last business. I had to work with like mayors in these loony cities in Thailand, and they're like 60-year-old men. And I walk up with my hair like this and my skirts, right? Okay, not short. I'm not indecent. But the look on their face, they're like, I don't even understand what she's talking about. But okay, I trust her.
Exactly. Let's use that to our, like, whatever gets the foot in the door. That's what my grandmother taught me. What is it? Whatever gets, if it's your looks, if it's whatever, who cares? Because once you're in the door, you still have to deliver, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
And
at
you
the end
do.
of the day, if that is what gets us there, let's do it. That's what I'm saying. Really thinking about, you scaled companies like Moxie and Omni, incredibly complex environments, right? So you have logistics, you have culture, you have capital access. What were some of those make it or break it pivotal, moments that you had?
My career was very similar where started in finance, right? Started in investment banking. Here we are advising the world on these millions of dollars of deals and blah, blah, blah. And then I worked in a little company called Rocket Internet
I
that
remember that.
basically, yeah, I didn't even, frankly, I didn't even know who they were. I was like so out of it. And e-commerce was coming to town, and I started in a little company called Lazada. And Lazada is Southeast Asia's answer to Amazon, basically. So it's the largest one. Alibaba bought it a couple years ago. Basically, they were the first kind of real foray into e-commerce here in Southeast Asia. So me and some co-founders thought that we could do the same. So we started Moxie, which was a woman e-commerce. Basically, it's like Amazon, but then geared and targeted towards women. We do
Okay.
like empowerment. We do articles, social commerce, right? So we do articles about everything about career, motherhood, sex and relationship, everything
Yeah.
women centric, and sell to women, but with a tenth of the budget that Lazada had. So I think my first kind of pivotal moment was kind of one, I'm not just advising, I'm running the company. So that's a big kind of pivotal moment. It's not as easy as building spreadsheets. It's like you got to manage cash flow. And
Yeah.
so you got to pay your employees on time. You got to buy some of the inventory. And so I think that was kind of the first thing for me. Then a few more of the highlights are raised money, almost ran out of money. Startup world is very different from investment banking. So our short pitch books are different from the very long ones we're used to.
Yes.
I got pregnant as I was fundraising. I had twins. I was telling you that I was raising with a belly. I got some people asking me if I could run the company if I had twins coming. So how I would do that, I had to go through letting go some or breaking up with some co-founders. I had to go through like strategy issues. We had a big Series B gap. We had some really great highs. We raised so much money from global leaders like Eduardo Severin, Facebook's co-founder.
Yep.
But then we also had very low lows because there were times when this one specific time I had to lay off 250 people in one day. So yeah, it was a big growing period of time that lasted for a while. Did a big M&A with Indonesia. We now had at the heyday it was like $50 million revenue per annum. We had like 500 people in 2 countries, and it was great. But then, I think we grew too fast. We listened to our shareholders who told us that we had to do an M&A deal. That M&A deal was not solid. It ended up showing cracks. And then, sadly, I had to make the decision to partially exit on my own just because we had a disagreement on strategy, and then finally exited. So the good news is exited. The bad news is not on my terms, right? So
Right.
so group a lot. Group a lot.
I think personally for myself, I think that winning doesn't teach us much. I think it's the losses, the pain points that really teach us what we need to know going forward. The famous quote that I always live by is plan for the worst case scenario and hope for the best. Right. And really that type of level of ass coverage has served me well. And I think that's what you're talking about here. One of the things that I really like to dive into, although maybe dark, is really around, what mindset did you learn or lean into when everything felt like it could fall apart? Those times where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make, payroll. I don't know if I'm going to keep the lights on. When you miss the funding, what really kind of did you lean into to keep it all together ultimately at the end of the day?
This might be a curse or a blessing. I think it's a blessing, but I don't remember I know it was hard. The dark times were hard, but I don't ever remembering being like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna give up," and stuff, right? I don't remember any of that. I remember just being like, "I'm doing the best I can." For example, funding. We're gonna find funding. We're gonna find funding. I was too naive to be like, "Shit, my metrics aren't good enough. That's why we're not getting the funding." Right? I was just hopeful that I would get the funding. And luckily it was in the heydays where my metrics didn't matter as much. There was other things that mattered, the long-term brand value, etc. The hope and the determination and the sheer willingness of the team, like that just kept me going. But I think as you get bigger, those big hurdles get bigger. And then sooner or later, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to close it down. I'm going to have to lay off people. But at the end of the day, if the company survives and then the rest of the employees survive, right? I mean, you're just doing the best you can. And I think that's the solace that I was telling myself. I'm like, I'm doing the best I can. This is the only the only option. I've tried all options. I've exhausted all options, and for the most of it, it ended in a good way. And some of them, yeah, blew up in my face. So
I am completely with you. I think that Charlie Munger said, of all the investments you make, if you make 100 investments, something like 96 of them are not going to work out. But,
Yep.
The other four do, then, on the scale, you're doing well, right? Like You just have to do really well, or 51% of the time you're doing better than what you were. And I think that that's really kind of what most of life is like. And I think that everything that you said is absolutely the stuff that people need to learn from, because we always hear success stories. We never hear the parts that were hard. And that's why I built this show. You have to have a little delusion when you're building anything from that 0 to 1 build. You have to
Oh yeah,
be slightly delusional.
I agree with that one. And you have to be, and I hate to say this, a little egotistical and hard-headed, right? That you're the only one in this world that could solve this specific problem. And you're the savior that can do it, right?
Absolutely.
It is, there's truth in it and it's insane, but the majority time of the times it works out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I think the part that people don't often see is that, up front, we'll be like, absolutely, this is the deal, this is the negotiating table. But behind closed doors, real winners cry in the
mm,
bathroom stall, or once they get home with a glass of wine. It's not without the realization that bad shit happens. It's just you have to be delusional enough to stand up in front of people and be like, confidently say, this is the direction we're going in, even if you have no fucking clue.
totally agree. Totally agree.
I think
Remember getting a
parenting's
fatty
mostly
liver.
the same thing.
Yeah. I remember getting a fatty liver from the overconsumption of wine during that period of time. But
I
yeah.
think we all do. I think it's kind of baked into the job description, right?
Oh yeah.
Looking back, you've really worked, and I know this is a passion play for you. You've really worked in global systems, often resilient to change. When you're talking about Southeast Asia, when you're talking about institutions and structures, and yet you keep showing up, right? You keep building and you keep guiding others. What is your definition of resilience? And I don't mean the buzzword, but as a practice that you clearly live by.
I've been questioning that myself lately as well. In the past 10 years, I've built and exited a great business, in my opinion, great business. Not the exit I wanted, but an exit, right? As a VC, I helped other startups exit as well. Well, before they exited, I actually helped them more advise and portfolio manage. So I'm just trying to help them expand and BD. Basically, I like doing BD for my startups. And then I also opened up a company and shut down a company, which unfortunately like died during COVID. And it's the reason why I question this resilience is it's getting harder and harder to pick myself back up. I mean, it is.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people always ask me, like in Southeast Asia, I talk a lot about resilience. And prior to, having to shut down my company during COVID, people are like, Shannon, how could you do it? And I'm like, yeah, saying all these cliches. It doesn't matter how you fail, but it's how you pick yourself up. But I understand how hard it is. The higher you go, the harder you fail. And then the harder it is to pick yourself up. And it comes back to like mindset and support network and support system, because I think resilience is like two things. Okay, yeah, pick yourself back up, but how, right? So for me, it's more about the personal talk to myself. And I know I can say that, okay, failing is not a problem, but it is. It still
Yeah.
hurts. It hurts
Yeah.
yourself. And to quote a fellow investor of mine who was in that investment that I had to shut down, I was like, oh, I feel like a failure and X, Y, and Z. A lot of people saw my successes and thought that this one was going to happen. And he kind of said something that you just said earlier, which was, 96% of all startups fail. Are you saying that you failed because you failed to be the 4%? And I was like, okay, well, if you look at it that way, you know, it's like you were aiming high, you were trying to make all of us money. You're trying to save all this problem and you didn't hit that 4%. Are you saying that you're a failure because of that? And he's like, I saw how much you tried. And so, I mean, it takes me longer to get back up. And I'm sure it happens to a lot of us, but there's still the willingness to do so. I'm still actively searching for things and reading things and whatever. And I'm waiting for that thing to get me back up. And I think I found it already. But yeah, I think resilience is a muscle that you got to keep flexing, right? I mean, if you just give up and then you're gonna leave. You're not going to get up,
I can't agree with you more. What is it? I just did, what is it? Dropping tomorrow, actually, a podcast on what comes after resilience, because it's tiring to constantly be resilient. And what does that look like? And I can tell you it's not a TED Talk in a pretty bow, and it's not going to be a yoga retreat, in silence. None of those things are going to be what it looks like. It is a painful process of being able to live in the silence when, you have been living in a house that's constantly burning down, and it just keeps coming at you. It looks like it's never going to end. And we don't know what to do. So we invite the drama back into our lives to go ahead and firefight another day. But how do we get past that, and how do we live with the scars? Because they're battle wounds. Like you said, you can, what is it? Get knocked down 7 times, get up 8, whatever it may be. But it's not without scars, right? It's not without these things that we have to live with. And, as somebody said, probably somebody really smarter than me, the more success you get, it doesn't go ahead and negate all of those fears and the problems that you had. You just built a bigger house for it.
Yeah.
And, I just try to make space for things like imposter syndrome. Like, it's still there. Like, I see it. I just don't allow it to take a driver's seat or attend my strategy meetings going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important thing. But I think that one of the questions that was posed to me, and I actually stopped recently, what is my why? Because think about it, when you get to somebody like Bill Gates, when you get to somebody like Elon Musk, when you get to somebody that, like Warren Buffett and stuff like that, why do they keep showing up at work? Why do they keep doing what they do? And it's their why, right? Because at that point, you can buy anything, you could do anything. And I think that, it's a privilege, and it's a, luxury perhaps. And that kind of leads me into my next question. Purpose, or the why, is often seen as this luxury, especially for women of color in leadership positions. And so I ask you, do you know what your why is? Why do you, what drives you? Like, if you were Bill Gates and you had all the money in the world, or Bezos or somebody like that, what would you keep showing up to do?
That's been my last 2 years, trying to figure out my why. Because I hate to say it, it's easy when like when I was going to do that woman e-commerce, right? That was my why. I wanted to build something that women can, utilize, and also I could make money, right? People could, it's
Everybody
sustainable.
benefits, win-win.
Yeah. And so lately I've been looking back, and in the last couple years, I've been advising a lot of startups and teaching. So what I wanted to make sure during that whole entire phase was to make sure that the startups and new generation of entrepreneurs didn't go through the painful mistakes that I did, because there is no school, there is no Y Combinator out here. We don't have these
You don't
like
have a Y Combinator?
no, not at all. We have a
You gonna build
weird.
that?
Right, exactly. I was thinking about it, but then anyway, so my point was, I was working with a school, one of the big universities here, and teaching the students, and I got really motivated in it. But I think, in summary, I think I like to motivate and empower people, whatever it may be. So students, in entrepreneurship, women in economic empowerment. I think that's my why. I want to be able to be the medium to distribute information, so then people won't fuck up the way I did.
You're building
Like,
bridges. You're building bridges
basically,
in a world of moats. That's what you're doing. And that's
I
your
think
why. And
so.
that's amazing.
I think that is, yeah.
We've really been open, and what is it? I'm just going to touch on it because I think it's important to bring it up. We've been open about the gender bias in tech and investment. What's one story that really captures what it means to push against those expectations when building something really big?
I mentioned the whole entire thing about me being pregnant while fundraising, right? And the issue is, gender bias comes from both women and men. So the female investors were really like, Shannon, how are you going to raise them? Right. And so when I presented them with a plan in Thailand, we're fortunate enough to have nannies here. I'm sorry, you're going to hate me.
So you're telling me to move to Thailand is what you're
Oh,
telling me right now.
absolutely. I tell everybody to move to Thailand. I'm a single mom. So during one of the outcomes that happened from my startup experience was that I got divorced. And so, two entrepreneurs in a house doesn't always work out. So because of that, I was a single mom and I had to learn how to be efficient. So I had a nanny who is basically my COO. She does my groceries, my laundry, my bills, my kids, everything. And I think the investors just wanted to hear that, right? Like a plan. And I think the other story that like really, really is seared in my head is I wasn't allowed to be a board member of my own startup. And yeah, yeah, when again, this is the same woman e-commerce, right? It was time. My other co-founders were bored. Again, all my other co-founders were male. We were running a woman e-commerce. I was the only woman, and I wanted to be on the board. And the comment I got was, "Shannon, you're not numbers centric enough," even though I was a
Oh,
bank.
oh,
And
that
the other
comment.
thing, yeah, and so I'm like,
Mm.
just because I'm marketing and maybe I look like this, it doesn't mean um I don't know numbers. So that's point one.
Right.
Then point two, I find out that all my co-founders are getting paid 30% higher than me and have a car allowance. And so I was like, oh, wait. So I guess there were two things here. One, of course, I could scream unfair, unfair, which it was unfair. But
Right.
then it made me go out and actually look at what my job description was supposed to be doing compared to other CMOs. And there were some places that I could do better. So, it wasn't that unfair, unfair. Oh, I should get that. It was like, you know what, Shannon, you suck here. You need to
Yep.
work on this and then you can fight on it. So that was kind of like a big learning for me. At the same time, how to show and prove to them that I was more number centric, like that was also something I had to work on, right? I ended up getting the raise and that's fine, right? But I think sometimes when I do a lot of these women gender bias conferences and talks, like I hear a lot of, oh my God, it's unfair. But at the same time, it's a good way to look at yourself, right? And just
Yeah.
make sure you're at market. So for me, it was a big learning, like both on there are some things I'm already on point, some things I'm doing better, some things I need to work on.
I come from a different generation. I think that Gen Z is really going to just overtake and kind of blow doors. I have a lot of hope for them because they don't take no BS. They're ready to fight for what they feel is, adequately theirs, right?
No.
But I come from a generation where my grandmother told me you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And
Mm,
so I'm with you on the concept of, coming up and being like, what is your issue, right? With this gap. And then going out and proving that, what is it? No, I've actually met these qualifications. I did something about, whatever deficiencies I did see that actually did match. And then going back and being like, so what now?
yeah.
The problem does tend to be in corporate America, which I'm sure you know about. They tend to move the goalposts. So you get everything that they say, like, are these all the problems? Great, let's get it in writing. Fantastic. Then you go out and you prove that. And then you come back and they're like, oh, it's something else in addition to forestall. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's always a constant moving target for us, but I think that we can be better. I think that we should do better. And I think that
Get
self-reflection
all
is
that on
absolutely
paper.
important. Yeah. Oh, keep receipts.
Right?
Keep receipts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is
Yeah.
the biggest lesson I learned.
Get
Absolutely.
all
Keep
that
receipts.
you said, if I like, oh my God, that's so infuriating. Like, it's just, whoa. Oh,
And I'm sure that also in your women classes, you also get the same thing. Was like, well, what does I work? I have to take care of the home. I have to take care of the kids. I do the laundry, the daycare, the play dates, the whatever. And then they're like upset because, sometimes my workflow is not as great and this and the other. Or they ask you like how much time you're going to take off or you're not on partner track or whatever it may be. And I'm like, the answer to this is the same thing that every male would do because they will never ask them because they automatically assume that they have offshored this, that they have
yeah.
outsourced these resources to somebody else and you need to do the same thing. Was doing laundry, did that really give you a pin on your shirt? No, because nobody cares unless you forgot to wash your favorite shirt. You're going to get flamed for it. So just outsource that shit. I said, because whatever you're making per hour is not as much as you're spending to somebody else to do it, to do your damn laundry. Have somebody else clean your house. Does it matter as long as it gets done? Absolutely not. And I think that it's changing those type of mindsets of what is considered, those duties, because we do double duties and how to do it efficiently and without apology. Most
Mm,
importantly, we should not apologize
yeah.
as, a female to say, no, I didn't do that shit. I got a nanny. I got, a housekeeper. I have somebody that does, X, Y, and Z. I have a personal chef, whatever it may be. Do that. One of the things that I've always admired about you from all those years ago at Davos was really you operate with such a powerful sense of clarity and mission. And I'd really like to know where that comes from. Were you always like this? Did you pop out fully formed with this type of clarity? Or was there like a specific moment or experience that helped shape your voice, or maybe family or community?
I want to say I think it's my dad. He's really been supporting me in so many things. So when we first moved to Thailand, we moved here because he wanted to get into politics, wanted to change the world. Yeah, literally. See where I get it from.
I
So
do.
he So he got called in by the then prime minister then, and he was like, and Thailand needed a reverse brain drain because all their engineers and doctors were across the
Mm.
world. So they're like, hey, come back and help Thailand. And so he did. During that time, I tagged along with him a lot. And my dad's very idealistic. He wants to help. He thinks he can help. He ropes in people. He has this innate kind of, because I was in the States, I have a bit more not worldwide viewpoint. I guess that's the global viewpoint versus anybody who's just been in Thailand per se. That's kind of where his thinking came from. And I think somehow me coming back and trying to bring my perspectives of everything else that I need know and see of the world, which includes entrepreneurship, which includes motherhood, which includes women, which includes all these different things. I think that's kind of where it came from. Now it's a question of where do I direct it, right?
Yeah.
I think that whole being able to accumulate the wealth of information and being able to be like a vessel to distribute it has always been, there. It's just a question of, at which stage of my life, what was I distributing? So maybe in the beginning it was like, finance, later on it was like, women and now it's like entrepreneurship. So yeah, it's always been clear, like this whole vessel and I'm a vessel and here you go.
I absolutely love that imagery of you being a vessel that goes ahead and distributes, the knowledge that you've gained and your ability to help to go ahead and be that bridge. It really does speak to me. Um, as you know, not only are we learning things as we get older, as we continue to transverse this journey called life, what are you unlearning? Because that's also just as important in this chapter of your life or leadership.
Wow, that's a big one. What am I unlearning? I think I'm unlearning the fact that I need to be so goal driven all the time. Taking a break in the last couple years where I just took a back seat and I'm just advising,
Mhm.
that's been a big kind of learning and new step for me where I'm not in the driver's seat. I need to be patient and I'm kind of grooming and coaching. And so I think that's one thing I'm unlearning. But at the same time, it's given me such a, my kids, the divorce happened right before COVID. And then we had some time to kind of lick our wounds. And, I got to bond with the kids more. So it all kind of happened at the same time, this slower life. Yeah, I've been seeing merits from it, but now I'm itchy again. So now I got to get back to it. But yeah, that's what I've unlearned in the past like 5 years.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think that the unlearning is actually harder than the learning, right? Gaining a new skill or something like that. It's unlearning, especially some of the things that we've learned when we were younger or were entrenched in us as part of the culture that we just kind of learned to accept and kind of work with. My next question is really about what excites you most coming up next, and what kind of trends are you seeing that still need to shift or change in order for really, I think, hopefully a brighter future?
I'm personally, I told you earlier that I'm kind of working on a stealth project now. I'm really excited about this one because it's been a while where I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next. And this actually really excites me. And what is going on in the world right now is I know the whole world is going AI, 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 but then I feel that we're losing people connection.
Yep.
And so, like getting authenticity, like really hearing people's stories and, podcasts included, but also networks and communities and whatnot. And I think like the sharing of experiences really still make us human. And again, it goes with, I don't think AI could ever really replicate that. Like, oh, hey, Tiffany, you're going to start a startup. Like, beware about, okay, you could say like, beware about these things in your term sheet. But then It's not like you and me sitting back and being like, hey, what are the things you have to watch out for? Like, did that investor grab your ass? Or, you know,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
what do you do in this kind of political, like,
The
competition?
nuances.
Yeah. So I think for me, I'm really excited about trying to connect people still in the future, still via technology, but trying to maintain the essence of being human.
Absolutely. Again, I did a podcast on what comes next after the service economy, which is what a lot of the more developed countries are really into, right? Or knowledge economy. And ultimately, like for myself, I think that it's really going to be around more of that human experience as we have more things automate things that we don't have in life. Really, that concept, like you said, about storytelling, narration, and the lived human experience are going to become even more important, and that human touch, that connection, that networking, that drive, right? And so I am 100% with you. I cannot wait to see, what comes out of this little stealth mode.
I'm going to be calling you for it. So
I'm here. I am here. Absolutely. I'm
expect
ready
a
at
call.
any time. You really said that, during like COVID and some things, you got a chance to really take a step back, and you got a chance to kind of reflect not only on, your why, which is your drive going forward, but then also the second component of it, which is really about internally about who you are and what's really kind of aligning with your purpose. Can you tell me a little bit about that, experience, how that kind of led through, like you said, you were also going through divorce with a single mother. What are those type of leading through complexities teach you, and what can you teach others?
I think it's also a phase in life as well, right? Like in your 20s, you're going to think differently. In your 30s, you're going to think differently. I'm approaching 50 in 3 years. So, like, I don't feel
You're still
like it.
young. You're still young. 50's the new
I,
40, and
I
that's
feel
all I'm
young
saying.
at heart, at heart. But yeah, so I think it's kind of like I've done X, Y, and Z, right? Check, check, check. It's that goal oriented thing where I'm like, so did I questioned why I even started that business during COVID that I had to shut down. And I think unfortunately, like a lot of it, even though it was a big problem I was trying to solve, a lot of it has to do with ego and I don't know if it's materialistic things, but like everybody, like I already had the past success of the last startup. I wanted to keep that success. I wanted to keep, status quo and everything. I was a shark on Shark Tank. So where do you Shark Tank Thailand? Where do you go from there, right? And so it's kind of like trying to keep it's a different rat race. It's like trying to keep to that thing. And then when it failed, I'm like, wow, like that's a big kind of wake up call. And luckily, it was during COVID where I had time to lick my wounds and whatnot. And really, it was a really hard time. It was probably one of the hardest kind of setbacks I had because of how far I had to fall. And I had some really good friends there. So I have a process that I usually do. I go to the beach for like a week or two. I write down what went wrong, what didn't, what values I have, like do a SWOT of myself. Usually it works. This time it didn't work as much and it took longer. But I think in the process of the last 3 to 6 months, I have to say it's just been a lot more clearer in terms of redefining purpose. It's a lot of trial and error in the last 2 years of like what I liked and didn't like, and all this stuff. So it's a process. And I think going through that shifted my new goal to having a more sustainable goal that doesn't have to be so high flying, right? But that makes me happy and still accomplishes my purpose, still speaks to my purpose.
I don't think we talked about like family enough, and connections and networks. How do you feel about those, and how do you build them, and how do you maintain them, and try to find out what we like to call work-life balance in the world? And I know it's never always easy or even, but what do you do?
I was just thinking about the other day, this is going to be really sad. One of my good friends, his name's Marvin. He's one of those world travelers, goes to Davos, was from the
Davos man.
ADB. Yeah, and he just passed out of freakish like accident last week. And I just thought to myself, wow, like how do I keep in touch with some of my really good friends abroad? Luckily I saw him like last month, but even that, it just made me think, how do I like you? Like, how do I keep in touch with you? And so I used to travel every month for my old job, like the VC world and everything. And since COVID, I've only traveled like I halved it, not even half. It's like a quarter of how much I used to travel. And that's usually how I connect with people. I would do my yearly trips a few times in Europe, usually Germany. Then we go to Davos or whatever, right? And then,
Up
and
the
then
mountain.
yeah, and then there's New York, and then there's LA, and then I do a lot of Southeast Asia actually. So I'm in Singapore all the time. But aside from that, I'm one of those people that are on social media, and then if they're in my country or whatever, I'm just like, "Hey, what's up?" Or I just randomly ask and I keep in touch that way. But I'm really grateful for my network across the world, like in the Middle East, and people like you. Like, for example, I would ask like people like Marvin, "Hey, I'm going to, Barcelona. Who am I going to meet?" And it's almost like, I don't know, do you remember like 10, 15 years ago, there's this thing called a small world?
Yes.
And
I also rode the
basically,
ride at Disneyland.
yeah, and as well. But it's kind of like you're going to go to like, Barcelona or Madrid, and then you want to know who to meet, and then you already know that these like-minded people are going to connect you with somebody else, and it's amazing. So I'm determined that I'm going to get back to that this year and next year. I've become the Bangkok person, so I have no shortage of people coming to visit me from across the world. You still have to come here.
I do. I
Uh,
do. You're gonna have to hold me to that. What is it like post COVID, I've only traveled a couple of times, and next year, probably starting in November, I'm starting to fire up the jets again and get back on the
Good.
planes and do the travel. So
Awesome.
yeah, we're gonna have to do
Good.
it. We're gonna have to
You
meet,
need to
connect, or I'm
come.
gonna have to come to Thailand to check out some real estate. Clearly. Clearly.
Oh, absolutely. You could come stay at my place first. And
Yes. Of course.
but yeah, you
And
must.
do some yoga with
You
you in the
must.
morning or
Yeah,
Pilates.
I know. Trying to start that up. A new, yeah, hobby. Oh, yeah.
I feel that. This is my side quest right here, is this podcast. And it brings me such an immense amount of joy because the people that I get to connect with and talk to on it just brings me joy. And I feel like this is kind of one of those few things that I found in my life that does fulfill that purpose, is getting people to
For
tell their
you.
stories and hopefully inspire others. For me, if it just reaches one person today that gets them over some hurdle, I feel like I have had the biggest accomplishment in the world. And so, yeah, but I do have a large proclivity of hobbies, including painting and gardening and all kinds of random stuff. So I am with you on that. I do like picking up hobbies. Shannon, this conversation has been absolutely filled with such a depth of wisdom from somebody who, I just want to let you know, I fangirl on you deeply. I am also impressively inspired by you, your grit, and the fact that you always are a truth teller and you bring it. But before we wrap this up, what would you like to say to the women that are listening to this podcast right now? For those that feel like they're not enough, living with that imposter syndrome, they don't fit that mold that are built to lead. They're not the white guy in the room, right? What would you say to them?
I mean, everybody thinks that they're not enough, right? I mean, if you think that you're enough, and I mean, it's good, healthy. I mean, it could be unhealthy to the narcissistic way as well. But I think it's a normal thing that everybody thinks that they're not enough. Imposter syndrome, as we talked about, is really widespread. It's completely normal. It comes and goes. I think the main thing is like this is what I had to tell myself last year. Shut the fuck up and get back on it. I had to give myself tough love. And I'm not saying this to the women out there. I'm just saying that yes, give yourself time to heal, give
Mhm.
yourself time to understand the imposter syndrome and everything, understand what your deficiencies are, and then work towards it, right? And it might take you a week, it might take you 6 months, it might take you 2 years, right? But the thing is, like, I think if you don't start on it, then you won't. I have this girlfriend last year who's had imposter syndrome forever. And for some odd reason,
Oh,
okay, she went to
was it me? Oh,
no, 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 no. She went to ayahuasca. I
oh,
mean, see what
okay.
works for I mean, I haven't done it, but
I
everybody
haven't
has
done it
to.
either, but people that do it and like it, they swear by it.
Yeah, and she woke the F up, and she in the past year and a half, she has just moved mountains. Like, she
That's
lost
amazing.
weight, she picked up, like, 2 sports, she started a business, she's doing business, like, she hired a team now, like, she's traveling the world, like, wow. It was just whatever that catalyst is, whether it's ayahuasca or you just like being, okay, that's enough.
Yep.
For me, it was just me I was starting to stop feeling sorry for myself. It is what it is, but everybody goes through that. I think you just need to give yourself a deadline. I feel for you, but you got to put your mind towards it and you got to freaking do it.
Do it. Yeah. I have two things that I personally live by, which is, when going through hell, don't take up residency. Keep going.
Mm,
Right?
yeah. Passing by, right? And I get it, but, like, you're just passing by. Like,
Just
this is
passing
not.
through. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, this is a road on the journey. I accidentally hung a left off the wrong side of the road. And you're from LA, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. The difference between Beverly Hills and like the sketchy part is literally if you hang a right or a left off of the 110 freeway, like 100%. Um, so that's fine. You just keep going, and just start. Just start, whatever it may be. Just do it, because failure is an option for a lot of us. And we don't have time to cry. Like you said, set a time limit. Give yourself the time to sit in front of the TV and Netflix and chill, whatever, eat ice cream, do ashwana, whatever it may be. And but then move on, right?
And everybody does it. I've had, like, useless whole days where I just binge and I'm procrastinating, right? And I get it, and it's hard, but I think at the end of the day, you gotta you gotta get with it.
Absolutely. And also just get out there. I think that, networking and meeting with other people that have been through the fires, who have been in the same place, and you can see that, what, there is another side, there's another light to it, is so freaking important, because we're not alone. We're not the first one. We're not, Christopher Columbus to go ahead and find a country that's already been discovered and had inhabitants. But, we're not those people. Okay. Other people have done this before, and that's okay. And what is it? We can learn something from them, if nothing more than them to tell us, snap the hell out of it, get up,
Yeah.
get out of your
I
pajamas, let's do
I
something.
have to, like, you have a really good point. Like, get out there, right? And it's okay, easier said than done for extroverts. But I do, when I was in my reclusive days, of course, you and I and everybody's like on social media, and then you see how great everybody's doing, but that's social media, right? When you actually go out and meet your friends, and I'm blessed and you're blessed to have great friends across the world, and you really hear about what they're doing and things they've seen, it's a whole different perspective, right? And so you don't feel as bad, or and on the flip side, you could feel motivated and you could see
Yeah.
what the rest of the world is doing. So I think, yeah, just have to get up out there. This is not the end of the book, it's just a chapter, right?
Yep.
So just got to turn the page.
Absolutely. And turning the page is hard. You're right. Sometimes it is extraordinarily tough, but I think that for myself specifically, getting out there and seeing other people and being like, you dude, you're not original. This has happened to me
Mm,
too. Like,
mm.
let's go, move on. And just being out of your pajama pants usually also helps tremendously. Shannon, thank you so much for showing up with your fire, your honesty, and the clarity that comes with, walking through that fire and still choosing to build anyways. That's it for tonight. This is Tiffany Hart. I look forward to seeing you again on the next Confluently, and I'll see you there.